Hello everybody and welcome back. I just scared the crap out of myself. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Traumatised podcast. I'm Adam. You can find me at AdamStalking_ on Twitter.
And I'm Sam from LSA Productions.
And I'm Inkydoodle from Inkydoodle. So it's kind of easy to remember.
Inkydoodle from Inkydoodle Corporation from Inkydoodle Inc. from
Inkydoodle Inc.
What a start to the episode.
Inkydoodle Incorporated. I like that. I'm going to use that one.
Yeah. Right, today we're going to be talking about films again because I've definitely seen a lot of films since the last time we talked about films. So
because all sequels are great.
Film, the movie, the game.
Film.
No, I was about to say the game. I was about to say the game, the movie, but I messed it up. So.
Film the podcast, the movie. Film the movie, the podcast.
They make a film out of a podcast.
That's probably happened.
I don't know, maybe Night Vale.
Who?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who that is.
Right, but before we get into what we're actually talking about, Sam has brought a mysterious icebreaker that he's told us nothing about.
It's just 10 rounds of would you rather questions that I came up with.
Okay, that's solid.
And if you and you have to just drink after. No, it's not a good game. We're doing this as the sober non-drinking.
We are not
version.
doing shots.
TPP does not promote drinking.
I do, though.
Wow.
So,
I've tried to come up with some interesting ones, and you can answer and then give me a reason why, okay? So, question 1. Would you rather be chased by 10 1-foot ninjas or 1 10-foot ninja?
10 1-foot ninjas. That'd be so much fun.
Oh, it would. What?
10 1-foot's about that much. Like, you could realistically...
It depends
They would... Like, I reckon you didn't have to be chased by them, because I reckon if you got enough of a pack, you could... They could go a few meters with a kick.
Them,
yeah. and that would be intrinsically funny.
Unless they did some sort of Matrix-style, like, swoop, and then put one of their katanas up in the air and just sliced your foot off.
By the way, isn't there a band called 12-Foot Ninja?
There might be.
But these are 10
No, there
feet.
is.
These are 10 feet, though.
Okay, 10-foot ninjas are different then.
Okay, what about you, Taylor?
If I was being chased by a 12-foot ninja, that'd be very fun. Anyway,
Like a 10
1 foot or
it depends if they're out to kill me, because I feel like...
You're being chased by it.
It's just a game of...
No, so like, they're just going to like rugby tackle you and that's it, and then they go home afterwards. Like, if it's
that's
that...
what ninjas do.
They just run up to you.
If
Got
it's...
you. Bye.
Yeah. Tag, you're it. No, if it's...
And now you are the 10-foot ninja.
Yeah.
Upgrade.
I'd probably go for 10-foot ninja just because.
But think about this.
I'd film it and upload it.
If they are armed, right? A 10-foot ninja, the sword is going to be.
No, it would be like
the blade
a
would be like yay big. A 10 1-foot ninjas, that would be like that. It'd be hard unless they managed to get your neck. You'd probably be fine.
Or like femoral artery or something.
Like a few of them lay in a row when you're looking, you trip over, and then as you're on the floor, they just all run up to you and start stabbing you with their little knives. That'd be bad.
I'm still going for 10 1-foot ninjas because it'd be funnier to kick.
Question 2. Would you rather? This one took a lot of thinking on my behalf. Would you rather jump out of a plane with a 50-50 chance of working parachute, or a 50-50 chance of the person tied to you being a proper skilled parachute user?
Well, the last one, obviously.
Yeah.
If that's 100% of the chance working that your parachute will work.
Yeah, but you're not the one deploying it. The person with you is the one like deploying it and steering it and stuff.
In the latter one, it's the only Like, is the parachute just normal? Will the parachute almost definitely work?
The parachute's just a normal parachute.
Isn't it? You just have to pull a cord, don't you?
I go for that one then.
No, you have to like pull it and steer it and land properly and stuff. But it's a 50-50 chance of the person attached to you knowing what they're doing, because either they'll be like a proper person, or they'll just be someone that jumps out and you're like, right, so what do we do now? But they just like, I don't know. And they just don't do anything.
I don't think about those things.
I think I'd go for the last one, because I reckon even if I was unlucky enough to be at to not get the train one, I reckon that
it'd be intuitive enough.
I reckon that one of us, that would at least be smart enough to be able to work it out, like before we hit terminal velocity.
I guess, but he's the one with the parachute on, so you might be able to.
You could reach.
Probably. Okay, right. Here's the next one. Would you rather lose one of your fingers at random?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Or 5 of your toes at random? 1 random finger or 5 random toes?
Toes, I'm a writer. I type. That would be awful if
Yeah,
I didn't
I'm
have
pretty
vision.
sure that most of your balance is based on your big toe.
Sam, I don't have that much balance anyway. At least I'll still be able to
Very true.
write.
I'm a musician, so I'll have to.
Yeah,
say.
but
Even though
we need our fingers.
wasn't it the guitarist of sort of some band, like I think I'm gonna say Black Sabbath, but it's probably wrong. They had their fingers cut in half by some machine.
Oh no, that rings a bell. I don't know about him.
So,
I think you are
so
right
that like
someone,
that,
but
so their like signature tune is just because he's got really stubby fingers. So maybe.
I'm going to assume that was almost
Or I could just
definitely
or I could-
a exception.
Yeah, no. Or I could
And
just
a
play.
generally very talented.
I could just play slide guitar.
Wow.
Steal that
Okay.
guitar instead. There you go. That'd be fine.
Would you rather eat a smoothie made of 5 unknown inedible ingredients, or give a smoothie of 5 unknown edible ingredients to a young child?
No, wait, no. Inedible means that you can't physically eat it. So
Well, no, it'd be like
scraps,
someone made of
scraps of metal, because that unpalatable means
Plastic. No, I presume he means like
gross.
a box, a sock.
Yeah, stuff that
Toothpicks.
wouldn't kill you if you ate it, but stuff that's not considered food.
The second
Some
one.
gold leaf.
Well, you'd feed a smoothie of like 5 unknown edible ingredients, but edible doesn't necessarily mean safe. It could be like raw chicken, because that's edible, but still can kill you.
No, I think I'd take the chance. I think the chance would be safer there. I think
I'd film it. It'd be
probably,
funny.
Okay, would you rather be buried alive or lost at sea?
Lost at sea
Why?
because I'm not buried alive.
I guess there's a chance of survival either way.
There's a better chance of survival.
But if you're buried alive, you could probably just yell and someone might hear
Are you
When
in?
you-
Are you in
When
a
you
vessel?
say lost at sea, Sam.
Either on a
You
tiny boat.
don't know where you. You don't know. You
tiny
don't know where
boat
you are.
lost at sea.
Oh yeah, I was going to say tiny
Lost
boat.
on a tiny
yeah.
boat. It doesn't really matter. Either way, I'm dead. I can't swim.
I can.
I can't really.
A little bit.
Swimming.
No, I'm not that great.
Okay.
I'd probably. Oh, it depends. Are you in a vessel when you're underground, or are you just like? I'm sure if you wriggle
Yeah,
enough.
you're being like
If you
coffin,
wriggle
I'd
enough.
imagine.
Oh, okay, I was going to say.
I still think.
Just hope you have enough breathing. Right. This isn't. For some reason, it's underlined. You know when it like apps underline things they think is like a mobile number or something.
A website.
For some reason, it's underlined a random part of this. But anyway.
You have, you have to say the underlined bit in a different voice. Just
Oh, if I tap it, it opens Google Maps.
What have you done?
I think it thinks it's an address. Right. Would you rather be forced to eat one food for the rest of your life, or to play one video game for the rest of your life?
Oh, I only play one video game anyway.
Yeah,
so.
I can live with one video game.
Although,
you can't like play any other video
I'm
games,
not
just that
fussed
one.
about. I'm not
although
fussed about
do we
video
get to
games.
choose? Because if we choose, then it's
Yeah, you get to choose
Okay.
the food that you eat or the video game.
okay. Video game, The Binding of Isaac, Afterbirth Plus.
And you can't play anything else, just that for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's all I've been doing for like the past couple
I would
months.
choose a game that has basically unlimited potential. That's constantly being like changed, like probably
so-
Minecraft.
A Little Big Planet, I'd say.
It has
Oh,
constantly has new mods and things.
I'd play
and-
Little Big Planet actually.
Little Big Planet would be a good
About it.
one. But yeah,
Little Big Planet 3, although I think 4's coming out soon.
I would prefer. Yeah, I'd go for the video.
Plus, I'll
game.
get a free like PS4 or whatever.
Okay. Would you rather have your picture taken randomly every day and uploaded to the internet,
Oh, that's fun. I like that
or
one.
have each day secretly streamed and filmed from a hidden location? So it's like someone's secretly following you don't know where, filming you,
So
and
it's
streaming it.
Either have your photo uploaded, or you're now.
Or lots of photos, essentially.
What's that Jim Carrey film again? No.
Truman Show.
Yeah, that's it. You get your own Truman Show.
That's a good film.
Yeah, I like that film.
But the picture, definitely the picture.
Oh yeah, I
Just
just
like
think
you
that'd be
wake up
funny.
in the morning, you're like, oh, nice day, and someone just pops out of nowhere and then runs away.
Yep.
Or like you just come out of like,
Good luck with doing that
I like
to me,
that
Sam. One of my rooms is underground, and the other one is 4 floors up.
Just pop through the window. I was like, what the hell?
yeah, this is someone on a roof.
Yeah, I
like,
think-
I love / hate Queen's Road Village because there's an entrance, right? And there's down steps and your thing. And that entrance bit, there's the tunnel bit with the post boxes and that sort of the main best sort of entrance. That is on the same. That is the ground floor. That is on the same like latitude as my. That's like the same level of elevation as my flat, which is 4 floors up in a building. Everything is the ground floor at Winchester University.
Oh my gosh.
I love it.
That's
this is
brilliant.
this is an
It's
interesting
so
one.
funny.
Well, you still got
Right.
to walk up the stairs though.
You have to walk upstairs.
Would you rather be shot once randomly, just a flesh wound at some point in your life. You don't know when. It could be tomorrow, it could be a few months, could be 10 years. Or be systematically shot with a Nerf gun every day for the rest of your life.
No, that would be...
Nerf gun, that'd be hilarious.
No,
just like
have
every
you seen
day at like 8 o'clock in the morning, someone's going to shoot you in the forehead or something with a Nerf gun every day. And it's like systematically. So you know when it's coming, but you can't avoid it.
I think.
No, I'd go for the Nerf gun one.
Have you seen the video of that? It's not real, obviously, but the video of that guy that gets beaten to death with a spoon, and it's like it's an old video, but it's like over the course of like 5 years, there's just this dude in a cloak that just hits this guy with a spoon repeatedly until he dies.
That's okay.
So no, I wouldn't, because that would just be way too irritating, and I'd be like.
So you'd rather just not know when it's coming, but at some point in your life, someone's going to shoot you with a real gun. That's going to be
that'd be so cool.
Flesh wound.
I'd get a really cool scar.
I've got enough scars
really
already.
Yeah, so do I. But I've got like loads on my face for like chicken pox. So I guess it depends where I'm going to get shot as well. Because if it's like in the head.
Well, he said flesh wound, so probably the closest your head it would get would be like your ear.
Okay.
But still, flesh wounds can be really bad.
Yeah, I mean, definitely I'd go to that.
There is this place that you can get shot where it only hurts, but like nothing happens. I think it's like up here in the shoulder, because there's just the fleshy bit. There's no bones or anything.
Right, okay. Number 9. Would you rather have to dictate everything you're doing aloud, or have to dictate what the closest person to you is doing aloud?
So basically, would you rather have no friends or have no friends?
Taylor is losing the will to live.
You're in a shop and you're either saying, I'm standing in the line waiting to be served, or you're saying, this person in front of me is standing in the line waiting to be served.
By the way, trying to think which one's more likely to get me punched.
Exactly.
By the way, going back to the previous two, if I get shot, will that photo get uploaded to the internet randomly?
At the same time, they're both two things. Or you can have it streamed and you get tons of hits.
That would be cool. Oh, so it's like each day is its own episode on YouTube. Is it like edited into like the best of compilation each day?
Oh, good, that would be. Oh, but that's a fair point. I'm just thinking, going back to the Truman Show, there probably were
on YouTube.
there would have been Truman Show compilation.
Truman Show best of March
in universe. There would have, that existed.
That's true.
There probably would have been memes about Truman.
Sorry, back to our.
Yes, sorry, we're like 2 questions behind.
Could you repeat?
Yeah, dictate everything you're doing aloud, or have to dictate what the closest person to you is doing aloud.
Taylor chooses to ignore this question.
I think the first one is less likely to get you punched, because if you're dictating what someone else is doing, they're like, are you talking about me? And then you can't say anything, but the person is suspicious of my dictation, and they're like, are you talking about me, mate? And they're questioning me about my dictation. Yeah, you get punched.
So would you rather get punched or get kicked in the teeth?
But you can still talk normally, but you just have to dictate. Like Sam says, no, I'm sorry, mate. It's a thing I can't stop doing. It's like a condition.
I guess if you're doing it with other people, you could point out stuff that they're insecure about.
Wow.
So Sam hides his smile when he laughs because he's insecure about the way his teeth. He's insecure about the way his teeth.
So would you psychically know this?
Well, I don't think you think about it. It just happens.
I think you're just dictating what you can see them doing.
So in that case, I'd probably go with dictating everything I'm doing, just because.
Yeah, because it would be easier.
Safest.
Just like, Taylor sneezed. Taylor said, "Bless me."
Taylor said, "Bless me."
It'd be really annoying, but
it would, but it'd be less annoying if you're talking about other people.
And finally, number 10. Would you rather be stuck in a giant game of Twister with loads of random people and strangers, or a giant real-life game of Mousetrap with loads of random strangers?
I guess Mousetrap, because there's nothing that can hurt you.
Well, does Mousetrap? I can't remember the game of Mousetrap.
It's not a literal mousetrap.
It doesn't kill them.
I mean, Mousetrap would certainly be more fun.
And plus, if it was a giant thing, you could probably just fit through the little holes of the cage. So.
Okay, I'm actually thinking we may have found a format here.
Well, for like a game show.
For a game show.
It'll be on CBBC for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. It's probably already a thing.
Yeah, maybe. That was that game show 50-50, wasn't there?
50-50 was great.
Yeah, there was the yellow team and the blue team.
I used to love 50-50.
That was great.
Right, so that was the end of my icebreaker. Would you rather?
That was very
fun. That was a good one. That was a good question.
Yeah, I just randomly came up with all of them last night.
We learnt today that I'd rather get shot, and I'd like to have a photo of myself uploaded every day.
Yeah, it can be arranged.
Most people do that themselves every day.
Apart from the shooting bit, right?
Yes, probably someone, but...
Oh, another day, bang, bang, bang.
As far as the photo thing, people put photos up themselves.
I guess they choose those photos, though, don't they?
Yeah, but I don't know.
They take 200 photos a day and then pick the best one.
Yeah, you just always be on alert every day, like they're going to jump out at any time.
I feel like...
Just like you're concentrating, you're in the middle of like some important exam, and someone just pops up next to you out of nowhere and just...
Yeah, literally pops up from the ground, even though there's nothing there to hide behind.
It's Mr. Rossetti.
No, what I particularly like, I like the concept of them popping up next to you, taking the picture, going right down, was in the middle of the street, and then just crawling away.
Oh, so it's like one of those smoke pellets where they just hit the
smoke bomb, yeah.
And then as the smoke clears, you can still see them running away.
Oh no, there was a fail video I saw once. This guy, he was standing by this doorway and he threw up this bed sheet and he was meant to run away, but he turned around and
hit his head on the door frame.
He slams right into the door frame, the sheet falls down, you just see him slam into the door frame.
That was good.
Adam's gone into like his
so I didn't have anything particular to say, so I kind of lapsed. Okay, so that was fun.
I like that.
So we're talking about films again today. We've talked about films before, where we were talking about generally sort of older films.
We were talking about films and TV. We were talking about the difference between films and TV series last time.
Yeah, there was an episode. I don't remember anything about it because I don't have any memory. I barely remember what we talked about last time.
I don't remember what I had for dinner yesterday. No, a pizza.
I think I had gammon.
Oh, I had gammon the other day.
It was pretty good gammon.
I had a
Gammon's
kebab,
pretty good.
chicken kebab. That was nice.
But I've definitely seen quite a few films since that last episode.
Me too.
I said a couple.
So we're going
I
to
saw
talk
Rampage
about.
the other day. Actually,
We're going to talk about some films that we've seen and some films that we might see at some point.
Films we haven't seen.
I'd like to start with the film Rampage.
Yeah, is that any good? Because I saw the trailer for that and I thought this is obviously going to be a train wreck.
Oh, I thought you were going to say obviously going to be a King Kong film.
Oh, it's definitely a King Kong rip-off.
A rip-off, yeah. I thought it should have been a King Kong film in general. Yeah. It's a big gorilla fighting kaiju.
Which, to be fair, that wasn't. There was a King Kong animated series with.
They need to do another King Kong because they did another Godzilla and they can do another King Kong and then they can do another King Kong.
I need to watch Godzilla films actually.
Skull Island, wasn't it?
Oh yes. Wait, does that mean that now they can do a King Kong versus Godzilla film? I
think that might be what they're shooting for. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if King Kong Skull Island was actually. Made by the same people, though.
I think it was. As far as I'm aware, they are pushing towards the cinematic universe.
That'd be cool.
To be fair, and that was not even the latest Godzilla film. No, because they still do a Japanese produced one.
Whatever happened?
Polygon Pictures just did a CG one that's on Netflix. I haven't watched, but I should.
Did either of you watch the film with Tom Cruise, The Mummy?
No.
Is that the one that everyone hated?
It was meant to be.
Or the newer one.
It was meant to start off this Dark Universe thing, wasn't it?
Dark Universe was a really old thing that Universal did, a real thing they did, where they had the Invisible Man, and they had the Mummy, and they had Dracula, and Dr. Hyde.
It's basically Sanctuary.
And they did it, and then they also did that League of Extraordinary Gentlemen film where they all came together, and that was the Dark Universe. Yeah. And I saw the Mummy film, and it said Dark Universe at the start, I was like, oh snap, they're going to reboot it. And the
Invisible Man's going to be in
this. No, supposed to.
The Invisible Man was going to be played by
Eddie Murphy.
No, what's the name? How have I forgotten his name? The guy,
Chris
Pirates
Rock.
of the Caribbean.
Johnny Depp.
Yes. The Invisible Man was going to be played by Johnny Depp.
And the same guy that plays the dude in.
And they were going to have like there was the werewolf character as well.
Does not want to play that guy.
He's really chubby in that one, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's kind of run out of public goodwill when the whole beating his wife thing came out.
Smuggling a cat or dog into Australia.
Fair, like. Lindsay Ellis did a video about Pirates of the Caribbean and sort of finished off by talking about no.
Well, it's just as soon as you abuse someone, you kind of lose all respect. Which is
but weirdly he hasn't. But the weird part is the fact that he doesn't seem to have lost any respect with studios. Like a lot of these other people, they've been found out, and then they're probably not going to have any major jobs yet. But people still.
Yeah.
It's not like Johnny Depp kind of even before that. Johnny Depp was kind of running out of. Good films. Like, let's face it, when was the last time Johnny Depp made a legitimately good film? Yeah. Possibly one of the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean films.
They are good.
Yeah. They released this picture. I don't know whether it was concept art or an actual
was that the picture of the cast?
Yeah, the cast for each of the and I was like, oh, Dark Universe, that sounds really cool. I like cinematic universes.
It would have worked, but then the Mummy bombed. Like the Mummy bomb.
Their licensed game was pretty good. the newer film. It was like
Right.
it's like a shooter game where it's like a dungeon crawler kind of thing, not top down, but like side view platforming kind of thing, like Metroid almost.
Okay.
But every time you die, your body becomes like a mummy almost.
Okay.
Which I think is like a major plot point in the film.
Probably.
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
Haven't seen
going
the
back to Rampage,
Rampage.
So is that?
I actually quite enjoyed it. It was fairly interesting. I felt like they gave a bit too much away in the trailer because I was expecting to see some more, like some stuff they didn't see in the trailer.
It's just a
but
giant
there
gorilla
wasn't.
fighting
That's
monsters. There's not much else to
Well,
that.
no, there was a
Really,
giant.
A giant gorilla and the Rock.
There was a giant wolf and a giant alligator, and then the giant gorilla, obviously. But
I can't remember if I just read a online written review, or it might have been Mark Commode, but it was getting better reviews than I was expecting. Like, I don't think it wasn't getting anyone calling it a masterpiece, but people seem to actually think it was quite good.
The Rock has recently changed up the way he acts and his characters because there was this film he did. I don't know whether it's came out yet or it came out a while ago called Skyscraper, and that had the Rock in. And he played this guy who lost his leg in something, and he had a prosthetic. I think he had one prosthetic leg. And there's this huge skyscraper that's like meant to be high tech and super secure. And I think some people break into it to do a heist, and they start a fire, and he has to save his wife and child or something like that. But I only saw the trailer for that. But the way he acted in that and the way he acted in this, he seems to be acting less kind of, I'm this cool tough guy, and a bit more sensitive in a way, and a bit more I care about people sort of stuff. Because the most recent film he acted in before these two was, I think, Jumanji. And in that he was acting as like this person who was in this, because the idea was that some guy got sucked into the game and he was the Rock and he had like huge muscles and stuff. And that was
even
interesting.
then, like that I've seen the film and he was still like playing up the whole like I've got huge muscles thing.
Yeah, in that one he was playing, but I think that one he was kind of he's meant to because the person that gets pulled into the game is happy that he's like the Rock.
Oh yeah.
But in these two, he didn't really talk. In Rampage, there was a few scenes where he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm this huge muscular guy," but also he was like really kind of sensitive in this because in Rampage there was this whole thing about how he cares about animals more than people, and he's always hanging out with his pets and stuff rather than people, and he also. Yeah,
well, it's good that he's not getting typecast then.
Yeah, I think he's trying to expand his type of acting. He still focuses quite a lot around unlike this tough guy.
Yeah.
But I found Rampage quite interesting, especially the whole stuff to do with genetic editing was fairly interesting because that's one big part of it as well.
Well, I'm sure because I mean kaiju films in general. Okay, there's two films that two like genre of like subgenre I guess of films that always appeal to me are fighting robot films. So sort of like was it Real Steel? That movie's like
I've seen that one.
Movie's kind of
I actually
trashed
found
here.
it quite interesting.
Yeah, but I just like the fighting robots.
I mean,
and then I also like kaiju films just with big monsters.
Well,
Pacific Rim.
That's the thing I need to see Pacific Rim because like I'm
the new
Pacific
one.
I'm a
Rim is
meta
perfect.
nerd as
Yeah.
far as my
Do you mean
like
the
anime
old
tastes
one
are
or the new
concerned. Well, I haven't seen either.
That's something I
We
wanted
know
to
what
talk
we're doing
about.
next film night.
Like
Films recently, most films recently, remakes or sequels, and
Pacific Rim was
they
weird.
cast like really young actors because that's like the new thing to do: find young actors and cast them and stuff. So the first Pacific Rim film had fairly old actors in it, and the new one had young actors in it, kind of like the old Fantastic Four and the new one. The new one had really young actors in it, but most films that do that come up with some kind of excuse as to why there are young actors.
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but there was a van that drove past that said "Living life on the veg," and I can't deal with it. I can't deal with
you
it.
made me inhale water laughing at you laughing at that.
So, please
Is
carry
that
on.
what you looked at, Adam? So yeah,
I did see it going past. Yeah, I think quite Taylor did.
Please carry on.
so yeah. Fantastic Four, their excuse for using young actors is that the characters all were like high school students or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Spider-Man
then
Homecoming kind of thing.
Pacific Rim, their excuse for using young actors were like they were cadets that were still training to be fighters.
Yeah.
And it's like, I prefer films that have older actors in, I think.
Why?
I just feel like, I mean, if they come up with a valid excuse as to why the young characters are in there, rather than just like, oh, we're just doing it because the young actors are better for filming.
What about if you were writing as a character that was a young person. You can't really have like a. I mean, you're not Disney. You're not going to cast like a 30-year-old to play a teenager.
Oh yeah, obviously if it's actually a young character, then get a young actor to play it. But like in terms of Fantastic Four and Pacific Rim,
you can get like child actors that are brilliant. You know, not all of them are.
Like sometimes you really like Stranger Things and pull out some
in the Sixth Sense.
I agree. That's actually a good place to use young characters. But like, I don't like it when they use young actors. Just
not
young
appeal.
Characters. I don't like when they use young
audience.
Actors in a place where old actors really should be. Like, oh yeah, there's this group of people that are actually in real life 20, but we're gonna pretend they're almost 30 and they're in this huge situation that.
I suppose, given the fact you were talking about Pacific Rim, I feel like that maybe have roots in the genre because the majority, again, as someone who has watched a fair amount of mecha anime, it's normally that is revolving off the concept of these are kids punting these robots. But the biggest sort of mecha show stuff like the Gundam franchise, Evangelion, that's what it's about. I think that's probably why.
Yeah, well, in the original Pacific Rim, it was all older characters, older actors, and they were like, which kind of makes sense. But in this one, if they just had the younger actors and didn't come up with a reason for it, that would be fine. But that would be like, oh, that's kind of weird. Why are they using younger actors?
I guess you just have to suspend your belief a little bit.
Yeah, and you guess, I guess these people could be in this situation even though they're really young.
Yeah, I guess that's where you have to rely on actually writing a good script.
Yeah, they have to actually make a reason why they're young.
Like if a film is well made enough, you will be able to suspend disbelief and sort of just cool, sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
By the way, have either of you seen the I guess newish? It's the newer one, Gulliver's Travels with Jack Black.
Yes.
Oh, the one that was made like about 10 years ago. No, yeah, I've seen that.
There's a kaiju versus giant mecha robot scene in there.
I don't remember that.
It's where one of the Lilliputians builds a giant robot that's the same size as Jack Black, and Jack Black fights it. So basically, Jack Black's the kaiju.
At the end, doesn't Jack Black?
I do have a vague memory of that.
At the end, doesn't Jack Black somehow go to like a world where everyone else is bigger and he gets put in the doll's house?
Well, that's just
like a funny little scene.
That's the whole book about Gulliver's Travels. It's not just the scene with the Lilliputians. That's like just the chapter. There's like a whole entire book where he goes to different places. For some reason, that's just the one that everyone.
I didn't know.
Probably because the film.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So, any other films we watched? Has anyone seen Ghost Stories?
No.
That was quite interesting.
No, but I do still need to show you guys the anime Ghost Stories.
Oh,
yeah, please.
A film that I think you would really like, Taylor. You might like as well. Unsane.
I watched Commode's review of that. It did sound really interesting.
It's all filmed on an iPhone, which makes it look really weird.
Yes. Okay.
It looks really weird because it's like quite square. And
4:3.
Yeah, and it's not like very good quality. And also the camera angles are all really weird as well, like the way they're always facing someone most of the time and looking up at someone's face quite often. And it's also a really quite crazy film because throughout the first maybe half or 2/3 of it, you're thinking, is this person insane or not? And you're trying to work it out.
Yeah, that's something I like. This sounded interesting.
Sure. Did they use? I guess you probably wouldn't know, but did they handhold the iPhone?
They would have had bits on it.
I think a few parts might have been handheld, but most of it was tripod. I think.
I do like a bit of handheld.
They would have had tripods. They probably would have had a fair amount of like pretty expensive lens accessories and stuff as well. They won't have.
I don't know. It wasn't.
I doubt they were like. Yeah, but
they would have had better stuff for the sound.
Oh yeah,
obviously. But
I would be surprised if they filmed it just as the lens is on the camera app as it is. Like they probably were using better camera apps with better control over focus and
probably.
But the whole like motherboard and thing existed on an iPhone.
Oh yeah, it's still an iPhone still is less powerful, so it's still impressive that they pulled together a video from that. It probably wasn't as simple as them getting a phone out of their pocket.
No, exactly.
probably wasn't just the director's phone he got on a contract. They probably bought it for it. They probably had a lot of stuff with it.
With like a 32 gig SD card or even bigger.
Oh goodness, iPhone you can get up to like 258.
Oh, brilliant.
So
one of the interesting things about it is, for the type of film it is, something really crazy and like mentally disturbing. Quite a few parts of it seem quite calm, even though they shouldn't have been. Like, I'm going to try not to give spoilers away, but there was this bit where this lady, the main character, tells someone to do this really disturbing thing, and she says it so calmly and weirdly that it's really weird, and it gives it a really weird edge. But yeah, that was good.
It sounds interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's Unsane. What else? A Quiet Place.
I've heard a lot of people talking about that.
That was.
Is that
I mean, it's really interesting. It makes you think as well.
I'm not a horror person, so I probably I can't see myself watching it.
It's more like a few jump scares and building up suspense than it is like any kind of mental horror or anything like that.
I'm disappointed already.
But no, it was actually fairly interesting. It gives you a lot to think about. Because imagine being in a world where you can't make any noise above, like, you can't even step on a twig like that.
Oh, was that the one where the monster's invisible?
Who, wasn't it?
No, the monsters aren't invisible. They don't show you them much.
What was that film? Where the antagonist was completely invisible and you couldn't see it.
The Invisible Man?
No. I get it.
I
can't remember.
I think I know what you're talking about. I can't remember now.
Yeah, it rings a bell, but I can't.
But yeah, this the interesting thing about this is like all the interesting things you see them doing to try and not make noise.
Again, was that not that was the thing in an episode of Doctor Who? Like that,
I think I remember.
That was indeed the thing. It was Capaldi's first episode.
Was that the silence one?
No, Deep Breath with the.
I think I remember.
Clockwork-ish robots, and they had to just hold their breath because.
I think I remember that.
It was a decent episode.
But yeah, it was
decent.
Like when I was watching The Quiet Place, I was like, that's a fairly interesting thing, and that's quite interesting. And I was like, that's an interesting way of doing it. I mean, you come up with, it's like when you're watching any kind of apocalypse film, you're like, oh, I would have done this, or I think you should do this, or stuff like that. Because it was, it was really weird. It had quite a big twist at the end that's kind of unexpected.
You hope.
And so I would recommend A Quiet Place as well.
Okay.
But yeah, because my dad and I, we did a double bill. We went and saw Ghost Stories, and then later on in the day we saw A Quiet Place. Ghost Stories is quite interesting as well.
Is it? That's well, that's was it Martin Freeman and a couple of other people. I think one of them
at the end it gets super crazy.
Well, I'm pretty sure actually we'll talk about this pre-show. I was pretty sure one of them was the kid that was in the end of the effing world, which I will not talk about now. Talking about film, not TV, but I have opinions on that show, and I haven't written them up yet. So maybe at some other point in the future, I'll rant about this show because I'm the only person that doesn't like it, and I don't know why.
But yeah,
I just don't know
Ghost
why.
Stories was pretty crazy.
Yes, Ghost Stories. Yes,
it was. It had a really crazy end as well, and also it was filmed in a really weird way, kind of like Unsane, but like
different.
Not as, but with proper cameras, I think. And it was, and the way they filmed it made it look like it was some indie film that some random person had made.
I mean, it does sound interesting, actually.
Yeah.
I suppose when it comes to horror, I kind of like more cheesy, like.
But
practical effects.
But I doubt it will be as funny as the Ghost Stories anime tale.
I don't know that.
I guess we should have an anime episode and have like Jack or someone.
Yeah, I'll track someone down.
Yeah, and I'll just sit here
so
like, interesting.
Oh goodness, it's the dumbest thing. When TV, won't talk about that now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Alright, what have you seen recently? Because Sam's been going on.
So about all the films I've
seen. Great, you've seen a lot of films.
Dude, I'm like kind of the
opposite.
There's
a film that we've
really
both seen, but we'll talk about in a minute as well.
What is the last film I saw? I guess I saw. Okay, this will be fun to talk about. I saw like the last 40 minutes of The Shape of Water.
I haven't watched that.
I haven't seen The Shape of Water. I know the concept, and I know it won Best Picture, and I know that I liked it. I've said this before off any kind of air, but I'm really glad because I really loved Lady Bird and would have really loved that to win Best Picture.
I wanted to watch that as well.
And I'm so glad. If it had to lose out to anything, it was not Christopher Nolan's gritty war film or, gritty social commentary stuff. It was a woman wants to bang a fish.
Yeah.
Like genre films in themselves, it's weird that I looked this up, and a genre film hasn't won Best Picture since the third Lord of the Rings film. So I love the fact that it won that, and the fact that it's this weird film that Guillermo del Toro made that won.
Really weird.
It pleases me that it's shaken that up a bit.
Yeah, that was fun.
I haven't seen it. I might watch it at some point.
It's supposed to be good. I'm assuming
it looks great because it's sort of, if you like the kind of 50s aesthetic.
That's what he was going for.
Which he did it perfectly. It looked really nice.
Also, I did find a really good anecdote actually from an interview with him, which apparently when he was pitching the film, one of the things that he said he wanted was for it to be filmed in black and white.
Okay.
Which the studio who eventually made it, they said, we'll do it if you take the black and white out and do it in colour. Later on, he said, like Guillermo del Toro admitted that the reason he didn't want black and white, he put it in there because he knew they'd asked for it to be removed, and that agreeing would make him look reasonable and let them do whatever he liked with the rest of the film.
Okay.
It was basic. I think he described it as like a porn sacrifice. That was very much a if I put this in, they'll take that and they'll let me do what I want to make my film.
It wouldn't have looked terrible in black and white.
No, I'm sure it wouldn't have, but it wasn't what. As something that he wanted to do, he didn't actually want to do it.
Which is fine. I mean, it worked just as...
So what other films have you seen recently, Taylor? Anything?
I mean, we talked about My Memory earlier. I'm surprised I remember that even, but I can't really remember any films I've seen recently.
What about you, Adam?
I guess I saw...
Oh, sorry, you were going.
Well, I guess I saw... you were talking about kind of old 70s horrors. I saw Alien recently, the first one.
I like the Alien films.
Number
3 is
there's a practical effect in the first one that's funny.
I've heard it's got good effects. Yeah. I did rewatch Power Rangers on Good As Nothing Friday.
I was going to watch that at some point, but I still remember it too much.
I really like it. Here's the thing, right? I think a lot of films are better if you take them out of context.
Sure.
For example, Netflix's Death Note film is a better film in a vacuum than it is in context. In a vacuum, it's a very cheesy sort of teen horror flick.
Quite crazy as well.
It's very sort of gaudy colours. I think it's an okay film. Sure. I'm quite generous with it as far as other people. In context, it's much, much worse because it's a Netflix exclusive, and if you're on Netflix, pay for Netflix anyway, you might as well watch the original anime because it's so much better. Power Rangers is the opposite. Take Power Rangers out of context. It's a really generic, unremarkable, but it's okay. It's an okay sort of sci-fi action film.
Sure.
Taken in context, for me, as someone who grew up with Power Rangers and who still considers themselves a fan of the Power Rangers franchise, it is exactly the sort of slightly more mature reboot I would have wanted. It's not perfect, but I really... It still captures a lot of the sort of humour and the sort of human side that the best of the franchise has.
I'd say I'm the opposite to you.
It's basically Sci-Fi Breakfast Club.
Growing up,
it's basically the Breakfast Club, but science.
I see what you mean.
But science fiction. That's what they meet in detention.
Oh, cool.
Just
they're all in detention.
Quite a lot of things. Like the start of Jumanji and the start of what was it?
The newer Jumanji.
It's almost like the Breakfast Club's an influential film.
But
who would imagine that?
I'm kind of the opposite. Growing up, I really hated the Power Ranger. I think it was just
I watched it.
Because the special effects were so bad, and also
that just adds to the charm.
And also the whole.
I think that adds to the charm for me.
That's something that hasn't. It's got better. But
and the whole
Tokusatsu costumes are still brilliantly cheesy.
I think that's
some
great.
of the costumes they've pulled together for Kamen Rider
I just found
Bill,
it too weird as a child.
I've been watching is really good. I'll really fun.
I just found it really quite weird, the way they act and in karate where you do all this not karate, certain martial arts where you do all this prep stuff before you actually fight and do all these weird. I find that's when they did that in Power Rangers and they did all these really eccentric moves when they talked and stuff. I just found it what are they doing? Why are they just standing still?
Don't understand.
I think part of that, at least as far as the in-suit stuff, that's because J-drama is compared to live-action Western stuff is quite overstated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it just really weird as a
and
child.
and especially a lot of the Super Sentai stuff. Like, I've watched bits of a handful of Super Sentai shows, and they are weird. Like, at a much different level as Power Rangers is weird. Like, it's...
Well, I went into the film thinking, I didn't like Power Rangers, but I'll give this a chance. And I actually really liked it, even though I didn't like Power Rangers.
It's a solid enough film. The cast is, likeable, mostly pretty good acting.
I feel like if you'd never seen Power Rangers or heard of Power Rangers before, some of it would seem a bit odd, like the way it just drops into this whole universe. But they actually explained it quite well for that type of film. Like, I think
what it is I think what wouldn't work as well if you didn't have any knowledge of the Power Rangers franchise is a couple of the lines, which there's a couple of lines that if you don't get the reference are really rubbish. If you've seen Power Rangers, you will laugh.
Didn't they say at one point in the film, "Go Go Power Rangers"? I'm pretty sure
they have the theme in it.
Didn't the guy say?
It's Morphin' Time was in there.
Yeah.
I guess if you were going to
Make My Monster Grow was in there, which is it does sound out of place. It does sound rubbish, but that's such an iconic sort of catchphrase that
I guess if
you just don't care if
you're going to write a reference to an older piece of work, you need to write that reference so it doesn't confuse people who've never seen it. And if you haven't seen it, it doesn't seem what does that mean? That's weird. And it kind of takes you out of the film, but it also shouldn't. It should just be like...
It knew what it was. It knew it was rebooting, but it also knew... Like, I thought it was good.
Let's change gears and talk about films that we want to see soon that are coming out.
Yes. I am finally excited for Solo.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I have been really cautious almost entirely through this film's production from the get-go, from the point of I think Han Solo's introduction at the beginning of A New Hope is one of the most perfect character introductions in film.
Okay.
You know nothing you don't need to know. You meet and all you need to know is he's there, his name's Han Solo, and he's alright shooting someone if he doesn't agree with them.
He's Indiana Jones in space.
He's a rogue. He's a smuggler. He's not objectively a good person because that sets up his character development, and by the end, he is a good person.
Rogue is in someone who can use magic and but slightly as like an assassin.
Don't think. I'm trying to. I've done D&D characters recently, and I'm trying to work out. Trying to remember.
I thought that was a World of Warcraft thing, wasn't it?
Rogue is just a common D&D character. Anyway,
well.
Because of that, because of how perfect Han Solo's introduction, you don't need to. It doesn't feel like you need to know his backstory.
Sure.
No.
And because of that, I've been a little bit cold towards the idea of a film about his backstory.
See, this is what I was discussing with my dad. I said to my dad,
we should have your dad on.
Star Wars, when they make the Star Wars films, they do like a group of three, a trilogy, and then they leave a large gap of time, like 20 or so years later, and then they do the next trilogy. So you have Chapter 1, 2, 3, then there's a large gap of time. Chapter 4, 5, 6, large gap of time, and then Chapter 7 and 8, and they haven't done Chapter 9 obviously yet. And I was like, so, and then they go back and they use a Star Wars story to fill in the gaps. And my dad said, well, no, they don't just go back and fill in the gaps. He said they make films that kind of need to be add-on to the story. I said, no, what they do is they take a tiny bit in one of the existing films, like Rogue One, tell the story of how Princess Leia got the plans from Darth Vader on her way.
I think works really well because Rogue One does fill in. Like, let's face it, Rogue One fills in a couple of plot holes. Rogue One fills in things like, why was there such a convenient gap in the Death Star's defences? Rogue One explains that. It was very deliberately put there for that purpose. That's really clever. Yeah. There's nothing like that for Han Solo. You don't need to know how he got the Millennium Falcon or how he met Chewie or his background with Lando.
Exactly, that's what I was saying to my dad. When they do Star Wars story, they take something in one of the existing films like, how did Princess Leia get the plans and was on the way back from the Death Star? And then they expand upon that, create new characters, and make a separate standalone film that ends up answering the original question. So that's what Solo's done as well.
I will just put this in just as a disclaimer. They're cash grabs.
Oh yeah.
The current trilogy is just a cash grab. That doesn't matter. If I still there, but here's the thing. So from the start, I was cautious. Then Lord and Miller were brought on, and I was a little cautious because of their background. Like, not because they're bad directors. I think the Lego Movie is one of the best kids' films that have come out in the last sort of few years.
Sure, yeah.
I
agree.
I think it's great. I haven't seen stuff like 21 Jump Street, but I've heard that people like them.
Oh yeah,
it's fine. Yeah.
That is not
Fun
a Star Wars film. So then I was also
21 Jump
a
Street's
little
not
bit
Star Wars.
relieved, but kind of also just slightly concerned when they were sacked. And like, Ron Howard was brought on, good director, after 75% of the film had been finished.
Oh.
And I was still cautious, and then there's been all this stuff coming out about how Alden Ehrenreich, who's playing Han, can't really act. And then the trailer came out, and I'm finally excited for it. I still don't think we need to know his backstory. I am still cautious about Alden Ehrenreich, but I do think that it looks like a really fun film.
I said to my dad, I think they purposefully leave gaps so they can come back and fill them in with Star Wars stories.
I don't think that was ever the plan.
Well, maybe no, it wasn't the plan probably when they were doing it, but they're like, oh snap, we've got this huge gap that we can go back and fill that in. But even then, they still leave gaps. Because when they did Rogue One, there was still a gap between Chapter 3 and the start of Rogue One. I mean, they would have to find some question to answer to fill in that gap. But I said to my dad, there's a huge gap in time between...
But the assumption is not much changed in that time, that's the thing.
No.
But really the biggest change that would have been made in that time is the Empire stopped using clones.
Like there's a huge...
That's probably the biggest change.
There's a huge gap between, obviously, Chapter 6 and 7.
And fair, there is a fill in the gap, because there's Star Wars Rebels, which spent 4 seasons filling in the gap.
I reckon after they do Chapter 9, which I guess will be coming out after Solo...
Episode 9 is coming out... I can't remember if it's May or December 2019, but it's one of those two.
I reckon they're going to do Chapter 9... It will end and seem like it's rounded up, but then when they come to do Chapter 10, it'll be like another 20 or so years later.
They won't do another continuation of the original storyline. They are doing another trilogy. Ryan Johnson, who directed The Last Jedi, is working on a side trilogy.
Interesting.
But I know they'll just carry on making.
What, Star
Wars story films.
Yeah, but I reckon the next Star Wars story after Episode 9 will probably fall in between Episodes 6 and 7, because they've got a massive gap there. And although my dad says there's not much of a story there, like not much happens, I said it will probably be some...
The issue is not, in my opinion, that not much happens. The issue is that it's who that stuff happens to.
Exactly. There's the rise of Kylo Ren and how he comes into power. And my dad said, they covered that at the start with the... They said, Kylo Ren was born and brought to the dark side. And they covered that in the film.
Like, you can't... There's little things like, if you wanted to fill in the story with the sort of the main characters, like, you could probably just about get away with recasting Mark Hamill. You could probably recast Han Solo again. Here's the thing I realised: you could not recast Princess Leia because she is such an important person, sort of role model to so many women, especially that. In a way that neither Luke or Han are, and you can't, and as was Carrie Fisher, so you couldn't recast her, especially not with her dead.
I reckon
in the same way that like Harrison Ford doesn't care.
By the time they get
and no one else really cares that it's not Harrison. Well, people care that it's not Harrison Ford because he's.
But don't forget, by the time they get to do the next Star Wars story after Episode 9. They might have already had another few breakthroughs in CGI characters because they might be able to CGI the characters that are too old or dead.
But there's a whole other debate about whether that's ethical.
Well, no, they did that with when Bruce Lee died on set, and they still had like the majority of the film left to do. They just CGI'd him in the whole thing.
And they
did that. I still bet you'll find people wondering if that was okay.
Episode 7. They did that with a character.
They did that. They didn't know with Episode 7. They did that with Rogue One with.
And they did lots of it wasn't CGI. It was lots of heavy editing at the end of Fast and the Furious 8.
Paul Walker, yeah. Yeah, well, obviously with Rogue One, the big one was they laid Peter Cushing's face over. Actually, Guy Henry, who is in is like my favourite character in Hobby City for what it's worth. I just had to set that one in because it's and then they sort of briefly at the end with layering Carrie Fisher's face over someone else.
Okay.
Like that one scene that she was in. But yeah, as far as doing it for a whole film, I think there were people who weren't too happy about them doing that with Peter. I I think there were people that didn't think that was really in the best taste to recreate this person's face. A lot of people thought it was a bit disrespectful. Sure. I don't.
I reckon they'll do what they did with Rogue One, where in Rogue One they create a whole new group of characters and some whole new story that they can wedge in between, fill in the time of gap that at the very end manages to link in and answer some sort of question. Like I said, there's not many questions to answer between episodes 6 and 7 about
we know what happened. We know all the really major things we know about is a new republic was set up, which presumably involved characters from the original. Like presumably that was especially Leia was probably presumably sort of integral to that.
Okay.
Luke started training Jedi. Luke's there. And there's nothing important that happened that can't involve the original characters. I don't think.
Exactly. That's why I think they'd make up some new story like Rogue One, but then somehow manage to at the end tie it back in and somehow lead it into episode 7, or they'll lead it in so it's setting up the stuff that happened before episode 7. Like at the very end, you might see Kylo Ren be born, or you might see Kylo Ren as a young boy training at the very end. You go, so that's how Kylo Ren then trained and became to the dark
Even
side.
that we know how he came to the dark side because you see that in The Last Jedi. That is that is not a question that's there.
Wait, do you see that in The Last Jedi?
You do, because let's face it, spoilers for The Last Jedi, because it's within 6 months, and I think that's probably still a fair, let's put spoilers on it. Everyone's seen it, right? Who cares?
Yeah, no, I've seen it,
yeah, like the whole thing was Luke sort of sensed there was something, and then there was the scene with the lightsaber, and then Ben woke up and thought he was about to kill him, even though he managed to change his mind. Like that's, I honestly am skeptical about whether or not. I think they should stop. Really, like once they've got episode 9 out of the way, once they've got Star Wars, I don't think we need.
That's
more.
what I was going to say. Yeah.
Like,
do you reckon they will though?
Yes, they'll keep going until
obviously they're going to milk
we're all dead. Let's face it. No, I don't think they're going to stop because the thing is the story is people like me can complain about it's they should stop because people get sick of it, and it's not like I'm not going to go and see them.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
so I'm playing into their hand.
I mean, it's going to get to a point where we're on Star Wars 39.
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah, totally.
And it's just going to be
but it's still going to make money.
Who cares anymore?
You say that happens. That's already happened to franchises. Who is actually excited? Actually, I am kind of interested in the Bumblebee standalone film because one key difference that it has from the first 5 Transformers films.
Oh my gosh, Transformers.
Do you know what the key difference between Bumblebee and the other 5 Transformers films is?
What?
Not Michael Bay.
Oh, okay.
Michael Bay is not directing this film, which is a really, really, really good thing.
The problem with Transformers
it's fighting robots, so I kind of have a soft spot for it.
The problem with
Bumblebee
Transformers
turns
is
into a beetle like he did in the original.
Cool.
Transformers is aimed at children who don't care about the storyline or the fact that
here's the thing, the show is the film. No, I recently watched a few times. Brilliant YouTuber Lindsay Ellis did a
don't forget
series.
That the TV series is based off comics.
TV series based off toys. Comics came afterwards.
Comics came after the TV series.
Yes.
That's usually what happens now. They make a toy and they make a TV series just to sell the toys.
Yeah.
No, actually, it's really interesting. So Lindsay Ellis, she's been doing for a couple of years now, I think, a series it's basically teaching film studies using the Transformers movies. And there's a really interesting thing she pointed out, which is actually what the text of the films, or at least the subtext, is essentially all that kid stuff is stupid. Focus on, fast cars and sex and not. No.
Yeah.
Those films aren't.
The reason I get so angry with Transformers is because each film basically just recreates what happened in the previous one. They're like, well, actually, instead of the Transformers coming from this place, they came from this place, and they were on Earth for this reason. And now this is what happened to Transformers when they were first created. This is why Transformers are on Earth. Now this is why Transformers are on Earth.
You are not wrong, Sam.
And they also, another thing they recreate in each film is like, this is the most powerful artifact in the universe. This one is. Oh wait, no, the thing that was inside this one is. And it's just like, Stop recreating the same thing over and over again.
It's yes and.
Please.
Yeah, well, it's a good improv exercise, but
It's like
yeah, good improv exercise for an A-level drama course.
It's like
not good exercise for creating blockbuster movies.
All the DC. I'm just going to really quickly mention something about.
Stephen Moffat has.
I'm just going to quickly mention something about TV series. All the DC TV series have the same plot structure. Each season of each series are like, oh, we just defeated this big bad. Oh no, there's another big bad guy that was the worst than the last one, and they're really evil and they're controlling everything. We need to defeat them. Oh no, we're having a bit of difficulty. Oh, and one big fight leads to another big fight leads to another. Yeah, there's no way to defeat them.
Spoilers,
we need to come together. We defeat them at the end.
Spoilers.
And that's exactly what Transformers is. Each thing is it's just the same structure as the previous one.
But Sam is fighting robots. Big fighting robots.
So, and I'm just looking at time and...
Any other films...
I was thinking, talking about, as you mentioned, about DC,
Avengers.
From what I'm seeing on Twitter, they are dead. Yeah. They have been killed. I don't know any of...
Oh, I thought we were about to move on to
Avengers. So we are moving on to Avengers.
Yes.
So I'm gathering on Twitter, Marvel might have just killed their franchise for good, as far as films are concerned. I have heard a lot of good from... No spoilers,
I've been trying to avoid spoilers heavily.
No one's been allowed to give spoilers. People at the premiere, they've... presumably had to sign NDAs.
Oh yeah, they are keeping it so under wraps.
It's not out yet, so all we know is I've read a couple of spoiler-free reviews, and yeah, it's supposed to be good, which is interesting because it actually means that today is the first time I've actually
You're
had
actually
much
excited
interest.
now.
Excited is pushing it.
Yeah.
Definitely interested. Definitely.
I think I'm the same.
Because
it's just because I'm the
I
same.
am so excited.
Yeah, but we know you're
a bit of a Marvel fanboy. I'm like with action films. It's kind of just.
Things I don't really like action films. So the films I like, the Marvel ones are the ones that do something very clearly different. That's why sort of my favourite MCU films are stuff like Guardians Volume 2 and Spider-Man Homecoming, because they...
Thor Ragnarok.
Which I haven't seen but should.
It's good.
Because they have... Like, Spider-Man is not a superhero. Well, it is a superhero film, but it's a superhero film, but it's a superhero film as if it was, a superhero film directed by John Hughes. Like, and it has this sort of teen drama, coming of age, sort of Breakfast Club feel to it.
Yeah. It was...
Guardians Volume 2 is this crazy, multicoloured pile of brilliant nonsense.
That's the direction that the MC universe is going in. If Thor Ragnarok was very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy 2. After Guardians of the Galaxy 2, everything that follows has been kind of similar to that. Bright colours, quite funny but also serious at the same time, and colourful, and the soundtrack is becoming more important.
Well, Guardians Volume 2 had some real...
Guardians is very much about the music soundtrack.
It was wacky and it was funny, but it was also had, especially Volume 2, had a lot of really interesting emotional...
Yeah, it had some pretty serious stuff in it. And so will Infinity War. Infinity War apparently is like super emotional,
I did see Wolverine calling it very character-driven, which is good, because that's what I was worried about.
Do you know what I'm most excited about Infinity War? Besides being excited for the entire film and everything, I'm excited for... Also, I'm excited about Hawkeye, because... Everyone's been
going on about what's going on.
And the directors have said, the brothers have said, he's actually got a pretty important, serious part that they're trying to keep super secret. I'm like, what is that?
So what we're saying here is Hawkeye's dead.
Well, who knows?
Almost definitely.
Well,
same with Ant-Man. Ant-Man's also super secret. You haven't seen him in any of the trailers or the posters, and... In the comics,
I feel like Ant-Man, that's just not going to be a huge part.
Well, Ant-Man and Hawkeye
it's not really a
do some pretty crazy stuff together in the comics. They're actually like there's some I won't go.
And also things with Ant-Man is I think they're probably presumably they're sort of trending around a bit because Ant-Man and the Wasp comes out afterwards, but it's set before. I know that they're both, and like Wasp isn't in this one at all. But it is in the next, especially the next one after Ant-Man and the Wasp has come out. So I think they probably could have done with shifting their schedule around a bit.
Yeah.
Putting out Ant-Man and the Wasp first.
Another thing that I'm also super interested. So Hawkeye and Ant-Man is the one thing I'm really interested about. Also, I'm interested about about the second Avengers film, the fourth Avengers film.
What is it called?
Because they've kept. I think because at the end of Marvel films they say the Avengers will return.
You thinking they're going to?
I think that's when they're going to reveal it. It'll say the Avengers are going to return in Avengers and reveal the name. I think that's how they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Avengers go to the store.
And also, not just that, but also what the brothers have been saying. Because originally, an Infinity War was meant to be part 1 and part 2. Right, it was meant to go over the course of 2 films.
They're dead, Jim.
Everybody's dead, Dave. But yeah, it was meant to be Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2. But then the brothers said that they feel like instead of it being 2 parts, it's more likely 2 different films. But they shot it straight after the first one. And I reckon, I have a hunch that Thanos isn't going to die at the end of this film. He's going to be in the next one, in Avengers 4.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much. That's not a prediction. That's like he's the bad guy. I think that's
and I also feel like he might not finish collecting the Infinity Gauntlet at the end of this film. He might be in the next film.
That I don't. I think he will end up with all the pieces of the Gauntlet in this film.
By what I heard when the brothers were talking about why they separated it is that Avengers 4 kind of sounds like the cleanup after Avengers 3 and like everyone getting back together, but obviously they're not going to make a film about everyone cleaning up a load of debris and all getting sad over who died.
Yeah, I'll be honest, they tried to pitch a TV show that was that and it didn't get picked up.
I have a prediction for Infinity War.
Everyone's going to die?
Well, no, Ant-Man goes really small and then climbs inside the glove, the goblet, bites Thanos' finger, and then he takes the glove off and then the Avengers win.
Another thing apparently
that's a fair point. How do they lose any fight when they can just have Scott step on them?
Apparently, because he's like really slow and stuff, and also Thanos does in the comics have the power to just move matter with his mind. Like in the comics, he crashes a moon into the planet, and you see that in one of the trailers. He's dragging a moon into a planet.
Personally, I know which comic storyline with Thanos I would go for. Because I found out recently there is one version of Thanos tries to kill everyone where he's beaten by Squirrel Girl.
Yeah, I know about that as well.
Like, that would just be perfect. I would like them to do some. I reckon like a Netflix series would work fun for like a sitcom with Squirrel Girl. And it's just a fun, stupid character.
You know what I really want them to do a Marvel TV series of? There's this huge chunk of the Marvel comics that not many people know about. That's a actual thing. Werewolves and vampires are a thing in the Marvel comics.
Oh goodness, of course.
Like, so there's a whole part
I think Captain America
vampires.
was one in the 90s at one point.
There is a whole part about vampires and werewolves in the Marvel comics that not many people know about, and comes under like the Marvel Knights, the same as Deadpool and stuff. Like they're quite there's lots of crossovers with not Deadpool, Daredevil, and the vampires and vampire hunters and stuff. And I think they could really, really do
Blade. That was Marvel, wasn't it?
Yeah, they could do a really good TV series based on the vampire and werewolf side of Marvel. But anyway, going back to Infinity War. Apparently, there are 2 Infinity Gauntlets in the film, even though there's actually only 1 in the comics, apparently. Because in the comics, there's 1 Infinity Gauntlet, and it holds all 6 gems, 1 in each knuckle and 1 in the centre.
Yeah.
But apparently, in the film, there's meant to be a second one that holds the Soul Gem.
Ooh.
And that's why we haven't seen it.
Okay.
But
the Soul
I don't know if
it's
that's
Mind
true or not.
Gem that is in Vision, isn't it?
Yeah, Vision's got the Mind Gem. That's
dead.
what gives him...
Almost definitely.
Well, that was in the trailer, wasn't it?
Yeah, like...
No, in the trailer you saw one of Thanos' servants trying to pull the gem out of his head. But also in the trailer...
I could just imagine like a really funny like just holds it.
Actually, no, they've got like
trying to turn it. There's like a line of these minions trying to pull this.
Well, actually, they've got like a huge scythe thing that are trying to literally dig it out of his
crowbar.
head.
The screwdrivers.
It must be quite painful, seeing as that's literally giving him life. It's like someone ripping your heart out.
That would be really funny. I'd like to see it.
Avengers is directed by Charlie Chaplin.
But what would But the interesting
Rowan
thing,
Atkinson's Captain America.
in the trailer, you
that'd be amazing.
know Black Panther's sister. She's like the scientist that works on all the vibranium. In the trailer, you see her holding this hologram of the Vision's head. So I'm thinking, if the Vision gets the Soul Gem ripped out of his forehead, which we see happening, but we don't know if it actually happens because we don't see the yellow gem in the gauntlet. You only ever see the Tesseract and the purple gem, right? So, if the Vision does get the gem ripped out of his head, does he then get taken to Wakanda and that's why she's got the hologram? She's trying to fix him because he's made out of vibranium and they know everything about vibranium.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And also, there are so many theories of where the Soul Gem is. Like, Someone has said
It's within
that
us.
Iron Man, Tony Stark, is the soul gem. Some people said Hawkeye is the soul gem or is looking after it. That's why you don't see him. Some people said the soul gem is in the centre of Wakanda, and that's why so much of it says Wakanda.
The soul gem is within us all.
Yes.
The real soul
we just need
gem
to look
the
inside
friends we
us.
found along the way.
And like, so the soul gem is also one of the parts I'm most excited
That's
about.
now brutally murdered.
That's another thing. Just because actors are not signed up for any more films doesn't mean their characters are going to die.
No, it means
It
they're
could
going
just
to be
mean
written out, but they don't necessarily have to kill them.
Because in the comics, people stood down from the Avengers so often. Like,
To be fair, in
all
the
the
comics,
time.
the death would also not be a deal breaker. Let's face it.
Yeah, there's like in the comics they like kill the universe and bring it back to life multiple times as well. So
Yeah,
that's the crazy
comic
thing.
continuity is a train wreck. That's a conversation for another day.
You know what I like about the comics? When they do a reboot of the comics and they do like a new Iron Man series or something, they don't just ignore everything else. They say it's in another universe, in a parallel universe, because they redid loads of the comics and they called it Ultimate.
Yeah,
they had
the
Ultimate
Ultimates.
Iron Man, and they didn't just pretend that was a new thing. It was
a separate universe,
it was
which
another
then-
universe, the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah, but then they got bored of that a few years later and made it not a different universe and kind of just kept a few of them around because
It's weird.
people liked Miles Morales, basically.
I think my favourite alternate universe in the comics is the universe where everyone is monkeys, but they still have superpowers.
I love that. That's amazing. Please,
There's another one where
please
there's another one where everyone's zombies as well.
cancel the next Avengers film. I want to see.
I
I want to see where a film where the Marvel universe is just full of dumb apes that have superpowers.
Oh no, they're not dumb. I think they talk and stuff. And they're
So-
all, but there's like
No, they,
humans.
yeah,
But
dumb apes that
monkey
can talk.
humans.
Monkey humans. So Planet of the Apes with superpowers.
But then there was another
That'll be
universe
incredible,
where
would it not?
everyone was zombies. And I think actually
Loads of people would go see that.
We've now got the mocap for apes pretty good with the last few
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes films. I can see that being fun.
Please, dude.
are they going to do another Planet of the Apes?
Oh, probably. As long as again, like many of these things, Sam, they'll keep making them until they stop making money.
And then like another 20 years later they reboot them.
Yeah.
Just the way of life.
I am looking forward to the Fox acquisition going through. If nothing else, they're kind of running out of major major villains. But once the Fox acquisition comes through, I would bet anything that we're going to see Galactus at some point.
No, that already went through, I'm pretty sure.
Hasn't been final. It's not like it's definitely happening, but these things take time. I think
Is that why the Venom movie, in the trailer it says in association with Marvel, rather than
separate?
just saying
Separate. That's
Marvel?
Sony that own the Venom rights because that's Spider-Man.
That Venom film looks quite interesting actually.
Yeah.
It looks like they've changed it a lot.
Well, they have to. 'Cause
But
they
there
can't
is
use-
actually so much
It
about...
doesn't seem to be involved in Spider-Man because it can't
Yeah.
be MCU.
Yeah,
And I
but
think that's the
Venom-
confused.
in the comics there is like... in the comics there's not just Venom, there are loads of other symbiotes, and there's like this thing called Carnage,
Yeah, Carnage.
and they combine to make other
Carnage.
people, and there's some stuff to do with S.H.I.E.L.D. as well,
Is there-
Agent Venom...
Is there
loads
another
of
one?
stuff.
Is there another one called Rampage, played by The Rock?
Who's
in the
Agent
comics.
Venom again?
He's basically Venom gets recruited...
Well, I know that was it still Eddie Brock or?
Oh, I can't even remember.
I think
It's so
I think it
confusing.
might. I think it might. I can't remember. My
I
brain
wanna
is
know-
saying it was.
I want to know what's going on with
Agent
Nick
Venom.
Fury. They were meant to do a Nick Fury film, but they postponed it for years and years. Because at the end of Winter Soldier, he said he was going off.
Winter Shoulder.
He like
Stop my shoulders a bit.
he like burned his eye patch. Nick Fury burned his eye patch, and he left and said he was going to Europe to sort some stuff out. And you're like, oh, there's going to be a spin-off. There never was.
He burnt his eye patch
then he
and
just
said, "I'm going to Europe to
popped
get a
up.
new one."
And I was fine.
And then he just popped up in Age of Ultron. He was like, yes, I'm hiding out in Hawkeye's garage now.
Why not?
And
Hawkeye's
he,
But he
he
popped
gave
up
a little
in Agents of
speech.
Shield a lot. That was it. Well, for
no,
the first
it's-
couple of seasons, popped up.
Yeah, but now he's like, who knows where he is? He was in Agents of
I haven't
He
watched
didn't. He didn't
anything.
turn up in Civil War, which I thought was quite surprising.
Yeah.
I was just expecting him to turn up and give some sort of speech about stop fighting each other, you idiots. Bye, and then disappears again. He was on when they did the not preview, but other thing beginning with P for Infinity War.
I can't.
With like the red,
preview is...
with like the red carpet and everything.
Oh, premiere.
Premiere, that's the word.
Was Samuel Jackson
On the
premiere?
premiere pictures, Samuel Jackson was there, like taking a picture.
Samuel
Jackson
Is
was
there?
there.
Is it
Traumatised Pineapple Podcast. Special
Sean
guest.
Connery.
Special guest Sean Connery.
Yeah, sure. Samuel Jackson was there, and he was in one of the photos. So I wonder if he's going to just pop up in Infinity War and be like, "Oh, you guys need to work together. Okay, I'm done. Bye."
Yeah, he'll pop up, take a picture, and crawl away.
And then upload it to the internet.
Wow, that's it. Full loop. We've got to end the episode after that.
Damn it.
Nah.
No, we're good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have to say.
There's
Infinity War.
If I was running the M&M's
twice.
if I was running the M&M's corporate Twitter, I would have made a joke about an M&M being in Vision's forehead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There should be a picture with the Infinity Gauntlet full of
M&M's or Skittles.
Yep.
What was I?
Taylor,
There's
get
something
on.
I was thinking of to do funny to do the Infinity Gauntlet back up. You know that meme of that baby that's like fist pumping?
Oh goodness.
That was an old one.
That one from like the dawn of time.
It must be a thing. Someone needs to Photoshop the Infinity Gauntlet onto his fist pumping hand and then just put a caption on there that says something like "So pumped to see Infinity War" or some caption, because I think that would be hilarious.
I cannot believe you just referenced a meme that old on my podcast.
I just think it'd be really funny. Just this.
Podcast,
Thank you.
The joke works better.
Yeah.
But that must be a thing. Someone must have done that. We have to look at that
I
up after this
certainly
episode.
hope not.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Any other things to do with films we want to talk about?
I want the Avengers to do a Christmas Carol spin-off where Thor's Scrooge.
In the comics,
You go, you boy! What day is it?
in the Marvel comics, Father Christmas was actually a character.
Cool.
And I think the Avengers had to help him, or he had to help them, or something.
No.
Yeah, but let's face
Father Christmas is trapped in the alternate universe where everyone's a monkey. And then he has to try and find
Father
his way
Christmas
out.
has the soul gem.
Okay. If there's anything I want
Had to unwrap all the presents and find which one it is before Hurry! We need to find which present has the has the soul gem. Santa, which one is it? I don't know. The elves wrapped them all up. Oh dear.
No, it's just in a box of stones. It's a box of shiny stones.
They've got to try each one.
Could you imagine like Thanos at the start of the film, Thanos wakes up and there's like a gift and it's just full of coal and it's got a note from Santa that says, "You've been a bad boy."
And this is why I should never be in charge of writing
Personally,
a film.
I want them to keep Thanos' comics backstory. Bear in mind, in at least one of his appearances, his motivation was being dumped by his girlfriend,
who was literally dead.
Who was literally the Grim Reaper. Because why not?
That's brilliant. Have you seen that?
That's why he wanted to destroy the universe to impress her. It was like, I'm going to destroy half
Wasn't
the universe
Deadpool
for
involved
you.
in that as well?
I don't even.
Have you seen the that picture where it shows that Thanos looks a bit like Homer Simpson?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought that was really funny. Marsh, I'm going to destroy the universe.
Yeah, but
that sounded more like Kermit than Homer Simpson.
Yeah, Thanos is like.
That's Yoda.
In the comics, Thanos is like, "Oh, my girlfriend death, I'll destroy half the universe just for you." And that would be such a weird thing. There are so many concepts in the Marvel universe that just would be crazy to try and put into the MCU.
I feel like
to be fair, you say that, Sam, but
the biggest they've done is
there's a talking tree.
The most convoluted thing they've put into the MCU would probably be Ego, the living planet. He's a celestial. Because, I mean, you're not including the original Fantastic Four as part of the MCU, because that had...
Because it's not part of the MCU yet.
Exactly. But
again, that they'll get, as far as I'm aware, Marvel Studios will get the rights.
I want them to
pick Although that would be weird.
Galactus would be weird.
Although that would be weird, though, because the first... the fire dude, I can't remember his name.
Yeah,
was played by Chris Evans.
And the second one was Michael B. Jordan, who is now... Also MCU, because he was in Black Panther.
So they can't really.
They can't.
I don't even remember.
He played the bad guy in. He played Killmonger. That's the same guy that played.
I'm thinking of the guy who played the Thing in the most recent Fantastic Four. Not
he was not played by Chris Evans.
No. But yeah. Anyway, any other films you guys want to talk about?
I don't know. I've only seen one other film recently. I don't really have anything to say about that. We went to see Love, Simon with a couple others.
Sure. That was
we?
good.
Like, I
quite like that.
I don't have much to say about it though. It was just good. It was a really
it was fairly interesting.
Yeah, it was well made. It was pretty. There was some really nice creative shots, but generally it was a pretty normal sort of like coming of age.
Yeah,
It's weird.
It was weird to watch that and then to watch episode of Legends of Tomorrow that had Kid Flash in it, who's the same
yes,
actor as in
Kid
Love.
Lonsdale,
That was really
yeah.
weird to watch that straight after watching Love Simon. I was like, oh snap, he gets around fast.
Well, the guy that directed it is the guy that's in
Nice
charge of most of the Arrowverse stuff. It's Greg Berlanti.
Oh, and that would explain why.
It was his first film,
Well, there you go.
which he did well on. Let's face it.
Anyone else got anything to add?
No, I mean I could
Films,
spend
the
plenty
sequel.
of time talking about Ladybird, but I won't because no one else has seen it.
That's fair.
A 10-foot ladybird or 10 1-foot ladybirds?
Oh, here we go.
Segue back full
I
circle.
feel like if you could,
I know,
I feel
10-foot long Ladybird. That would be
not tall, just like
Just
10
long.
foot long.
yeah. No, well that's the
really
main.
thin.
That's the main because it's on all sixes.
No, but like
no. I mean, like
he doesn't mean
it's
scaled
not like
up.
scaled up 10
it's
to
still
10 feet.
as tall as a ladybird, but
But
just
10 foot long. Yeah,
just lay on it.
true. But only
just
with
like-
6 legs.
I'm trying to think
You
about
could, put it in
opening
a
up the
swimming,
wings.
you could put it on a swimming pool and just like lay on it like
There's a bridge. Tightrope walking on a ladybird.
I feel like a 10 foot tall and long, which I guess like scaled up to 10 feet, would be like if you could train it, pretty cool.
oh, like the giant ant in the first Ant-Man film.
Yeah.
Yes.
I hope that comes out in the second Ant-Man film.
That'll be
Well,
fun.
that
It's
was
got
a
to be there.
that was a conversation.
It was.
Right, I don't have anything else to say. Do you guys have anything else to say?
No.
The Traumatised Pineapple podcast will return in episode 7.
Nice. And also check out Taylor and I's podcast, the Science, Psychology and Philosophy podcast.
And check out
if
the
you want to hear
podcast-
more of us.
Check out the
Yeah,
podcast.
check that out. That is over on Sam's YouTube channel.
And check out the podcast
yeah,
that I do
some
by
else you-
myself and don't release.
Ah,
I just kind of just
You-
record.
you have no access to it.
I just talk to myself in my room.
Right, well, that will wrap that up for today then. I've been Adam. You can find me on Twitter at @AdamisTalking_.
I'm not Adam.
I'm Inky Doodle, and you can find me hiding under your couch.
I'm Sam from LTA Productions, and we are on the social medias.
This has been the Traumatised Pineapple Podcast. Thanks for listening. Bye.